Hey guys, it's Dark Lord Deuce, aka the Elden Armor, and what we're going to talk about today is katanas. Now, you guys always see me use kibas, and the big question has been, are katanas the meta, or could they be considered meta? Now, the apprentice and I are probably some of the best cats players in the world, and we were talking about this, and this is what we came up with, guys. The katanas are meta in the hands of a skilled user. If not, they're crap. And saying that, guys, I've beat about every setup that you can think of with kibas. It's just the way you have to play. You'll learn once you learn katanas a little bit. But like I said, guys, these are meta if you know how to use them. Now, you would preferably want to use the kibas because of the length, but we wanted to get into something a little different where I'm always playing kibas. So I went with the dragon scale blade in my off and the sword of night in my main. And you'll see in the arena, in duels and in invasions, how pretty much I didn't do a lot of invasions with the Dragon Scale Blade and Sword of Night because I'm not really an invasion guy. But everybody keeps telling me, well, they're good for arena, but, katanas are not good for, like, invasions because you can't deal with, any three-man groups because they don't have hyper armor. Well, the trick to that, guys, in this build is being able to hold a misericord in your offhand, and then you switch down to the Hand of Melania. So when you get three people, you just endure Hand of Melania, and then you do your little dance and watch health bars disappear. So that's how we deal with it in invasions, guys. But I hope you guys enjoy the video. If you do like the video, like, subscribe, and share. And as always, guys, Dark Lord Deuce, peace out. Alright, guys. Most people say that, yeah, katanas are good for dueling, but they're not that great for, PvE. They're only a PvP weapon. Well, that's not true, guys. Katanas are devastating if you know how to use them in PvE or PvP. And you'll see right here in just a second what I mean by that. Now, here's a boss. We're going to use the same combination we do in PvE or PvP. And you can see smoked half that boss's health bar in 4 attacks. Now, when you're using Sword of Night, guys, you have to remember that it goes through shields and it has the true combo, and it's absolutely devastating when you land it on somebody. Kibas, per se, I didn't know this about kibas or katanas in general until this guy right here I'm fighting. There is a true combo that I don't think a lot of people know, and it's the crouch cancel when you're dual wielding into the R2, which is just nuts to me. But as you can see right there, guys, that's, somebody that's being a poised monster and mitigation monster, 4 attacks and leveling him. This guy here, we had a couple duels and he kind of stick whacked me in front of it, so I knew I was going to not be able to catch him with a jump attack, so I went with the crouch cancel and done shoot. But guys, katanas are one of those weapons you have to really enjoy for them to be good. It takes a long time to get the skill with them. The guy I call my apprentice, which is a real good friend of mine, he's the one that got me into him back in 1.08, and I kind of started playing him in 109, the end of it, and 110 is when I really got into him. But he's kind of who taught me the gist of it, guys. But once you kind of get the hang of them, there's nothing in the game that it can compare to them as far as damage output and what you can actually accomplish with them. The main thing I always tell people, if you're wanting to learn how to play with them, guys, you need to start out and learn how to play with one two-handed before you bring the second one into effect. And then when you do that, then that's when you have to start looking for your combos, like the jump L1 into the unsheathed crouch cancel L1. Now, when I done the Dragon Scale Blade and the Sword of Night, I didn't want to use an Uchi in my main hand with Unsheathed. I wanted to find like a new combo that I could land with it. So that's kind of the gist of why I started using it. And it was really good too. Now this guy here's a friend of mine, guys, and that setup he just had, I used a couple other setups, the 2 matches before it against it, and he absolutely obliterated me on, and I had to go back to kibas to deal with it to kind of counter it. Another thing, guys, when you're playing kibas, you have to be, kind of pick and choose your poison. You can't just run in, boneheaded and think that you're going to bully people, but because there's no hyper armor. The only kind of drawback and kind of counter to any kind of katana is hyper armor, guys, because you have none. Which that's kind of normal with any weapon that doesn't have hyper armor. That's the reason Kibas are more superior over any of the other katanas. It's just because the length of them. Now, when you get used to them, guys, there's so many ways you can come up with the combos to kind of go into. And not only that, katanas are a roll catching monster, guys. You can roll catch with the R1, you can roll catch with the R2, you can roll catch with the crouch L1. There's just so much you can, roll catch with. You just got to learn the timing. But, in every match it's going to be different, guys. So you have to learn the latency that you're playing against and kind of get used to it. Just like here, I never knew that a crouch L1 two-handed would knock Mesmer's Spear out with the Astral War, because usually nothing knocks it out. The big thing about having katanas, though, guys, is pretty much if you can master them and you can beat about every setup with them, you can kind of put yourself in a skilled player's position, because these are weapons that you can't just give to anybody and them be devastating with them. You have to really know the weapons. But once you know them, there's nothing in the game I've ever seen that comes as close to being as devastating as far as the damage as they are. Back in 110, when, everybody was running dual lances or something, like some type of PG or PSGS, the only thing that even compared to those damage-wise were dual Kibas, and really they've done more damage than, lances did, and that's how I used to counter them in 110. But like I said, guys, anytime that you guys get discouraged about trying to learn a weapon, what I used to always do is I would get somebody to drop me whatever weapon I wanted to learn and then run through the game with it. That's probably one of the best teaching tools. Or if you have a friend that you can, duel with consistently and have them switch weapons, and if they're good with all weapons, you'll get used to playing against them. But if you guys liked the video, man, like, subscribe, and share. There's going to be a few invasions I got going on, guys. A lot of people, like I said, have been saying they're not meta, and I'd like to really know what you guys think. Because the main thing I think that people don't understand about, katanas in general is Ashes of War and stuff like that are nice, and yeah, they hurt really bad when you land them with a katana. But mainly, if you learn how to fight with one, you can take one katana with the R1s, R2s, and then jump R1s and R2s and crouch cancels, and not even use an Astral War, guys, and absolutely devastate people. I would just recommend that if you're getting discouraged with them, to learn how to frosty tech. That's how I get away with a lot of the times when I'm trying to push, guys, is I frosty tech, which cancels my recovery time. But, guys, as always, man, Dark Lord Deuce, we're going to get out of here, man. Y'all have a blessed day. I'm going to put some music on for you guys. And like I said, if you liked the video, guys, it would help a lot to like, subscribe, and share. Y'all have a blessed day.